And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Everyone, just stand up, go
Woo!
crazy,
Yeah.
cheer, burn your
Woo!
house down.
Woo!
Don't do that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It has been way too long since we've had the opportunity of gathering as unfiltered and unqualified. Largely my fault. I called dibs on the next presentation and I kept pushing it back. And I wanted to push it back again to my embarrassment, but I was like, no, it's finally time. Basically, long story short, this is a topic I've been wanting to go over for a super long time because I think it's super cool and fascinating. And it's basically just, I think, fascinating demographics about members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm basically going to take the next hour to just brag how cool we are. The reason why I want to postpone it more and apologize is this intro slide is very misleading. Based on it, you probably would think your IQ is about to go up by 20 due to the beauty of these slides. And normally I love making beautiful slides. These are not going to be beautiful slides. It's going to be a whole lot of ugly block quote text. So I'm going to do my best to summarize things, and then you guys can like read through the text, or we'll popcorn read. You can be like, whoa, that's interesting. And then like share your thought, and basically we'll talk about why we're so cool. And that's it in a nutshell. Any questions at this point? Anyone need to share us some earth-breaking news since we've had such a long hiatus?
I'm pregnant. No, I'm
Tanner!
I'm just kidding. No, nothing too crazy.
They said it couldn't be done. I am so proud, man. Wait to get world records in something.
No, nothing too crazy. Just living life. Yeah.
Very nice.
Good.
And we lost Ammon, is that right?
We did. I just texted him.
Okay.
We'll see if he comes back.
Okay. Well, if he does, great. If not, that's okay. I definitely would not be offended if he got scared off by my intro. Oh, and this little icon in the bottom right is a clickable link to take you to all my sources for the thousands of people who will watch this. And most of the notes have a lot of thoughts, but like the actual OG sources, I used a lot of AI summaries. I won't lie. I've spent a long time gathering these sources, and just used AI to speed up the summary process. So you can find them there, and the OGs as well. Basically, I want to talk about by their fruits ye shall know them. This is a mandate, you could say, or a test given out by Christ himself, where we can try and gauge what's good in this life, in this world. You know, are you better off or worse off following certain teachings? And kind of a central theme of this presentation, a added deeper thought to this.
I've seen this. I've seen these guys.
I love these guys. Alex O'Connor is the guy on the left. He is one of, if not the top atheist YouTuber right now. Love his podcasts. The guy on the right is Jacob Hansen. He is one of, if not the top apologist for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Love his videos. They met on a Jubilee discussion and just kind of hit it off as friends, and have had more discussions since then. And this was their first official interview of just each other. Though it was a super fascinating, super cool interview. At one point, Jacob shared lots of really cool stats, like we're going to do today. He's like, Latter-day Saints are the healthiest people. They give the most charity, like money to charity. They give most of their time. Like they're the ideal people. Everybody should want Latter-day Saints in the country because they're just amazing. They have kids, yada, yada, yada. And Alex is like, yeah, that's like fair, good point, but I don't really hold those arguments as much water in my eyes. Like, it definitely doesn't count against you that you are the greatest people when it comes to demographics, but I don't see that as like proof of anything necessarily. To which I'm just going to give a little pushback, and I'm going to say that I think Alex can hold this opinion as an atheist. However, he's was atheist and more so agnostic now, is my understanding. So even still as an agnostic, I think you can hold this. And the reason why I say that is because if you accept the premise that there is a benevolent creator, a benevolent, all powerful being out there, wouldn't his teachings, wouldn't his path be the way to bring you the most happiness, be the way to help you be the best people, you know? So, and obviously that's not necessarily saying that it'll always be happy, because our early history is full of persecution, and we definitely did not have the best demographics, and we're not the wealthiest, and yada 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 in our early days, right? But yeah, that's basically my background on these thoughts, and I feel like that's the takeaway is that if you reject the idea of some benevolent creator, then okay, yeah, I can see how you say this doesn't mean much to you. But if you accept the premise, if you're a Catholic, a Protestant, insert believer of a good God here, this is a problem for you, I think, that can be hard to overcome. Make sense? And agree
It does, yeah.
that we're the best before I share any stats of why we're the best?
Yeah, I mean, I think your argument is a good one, and I think it's easy for Alex to say, like, oh, well, that doesn't directly have to do with religion necessarily, but I don't think that some group of people is going to accidentally stumble on being the best people, most successful, most emotionally healthy, or whatever it is, just by chance, you know? Like, if there is a group of people who is excelling, then that's like a scientific, psychological anomaly that we need to study and figure out what are they doing because it's working and everybody needs it. You know what I mean? So I think it definitely lends itself to the fact of there is a value here. This is a virtue that everyone needs. We do need to understand it and seek it. It's not just going to be randomly occurring.
Awesome. Thank you. And like, to be fair, it is true that if everything is like it's all random, chance, whatever, some group is going to be the most happy, right? Like, it is true, but is it really the group that has the most rules? You know, is it really the group that has all these things you can't do? I don't know. Just yeah, I don't know. Thank you, Brooklyn. I love it. I love the thought. Let's dive into it. Okay, so we got these first two slides are just kind of some more boring, just interesting thoughts. Looks like as of 2007, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was about 60% of Utah's population, about a third of church members. We are, in surveys, we are described as being the most devout and conservative people in the country. Big shocker there, maybe not so much. Feel free to stop me at any point if you have an interesting thought on these. Oh, and internally, we're actually pretty diverse. Like, when it comes to like our beliefs, our socioeconomic backgrounds, ethnic, not as much in Utah in particular, but ethnically, we are a very diverse church globally. Let's see.
There's not a lot of different ethnicity to be had in Utah anyway.
Yeah, not much diversity
Great
here.
point. Yeah. Solid point. There are about 4% of people who ascribe themselves as members of the church, as Mormons, not members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But there's about 4% of people who describe themselves as Mormon that are sadly not on the straight and narrow and are lost sheep, and poor peoples are fake Mormons. But that's about as insensitive as I can get.
So there are people who claim that they're Mormons and they're like not baptized or anything.
I think this is like knockoffs, like the RLDS.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That kind of stuff. Yeah. But I think that would include people not baptized. But 3/4 of us are married, which is significantly higher than general population.
Only
We are,
54% of the general population's married. That's crazy.
yeah, I mean, cohabitation probably would, if you do
Mhm.
couples, cohabitation would probably spike those numbers a lot. But regardless, the stats for cohabitation versus marriage, I didn't really get those stats, but it's way better for kids to have a marriage. And I think for the partner too, if I remember right, like you feel way more secure with that person. Yeah, we're very likely to be married to someone with their own faith. We have large families, um, and 86% of our members are white.
Of
And then we got
memers,
of memers.
it's just
Wait,
what it
what?
says. It says 86% of memers are white. It's just a typo.
Oh, instead of members, oh,
I just thought it was funny
oh yeah,
because
that's
memes are
funny.
funny. But
Wow, that is funny. Um, yeah, um, and about 26% of members are converts, which is higher than I thought, actually. So, and converts are more likely to be a little less educated, a little poorer, and come from a racial minority. So, fascinating thoughts there. A little more demographics to continue. As of the end of 2024, we had a worldwide membership of 17.5 million ish. We had dramatic growth in the 1830s, 50s, 80s, really crazy growth. However, our growth rate has fallen a lot recently. It's now about a 2% every year, which is much less than the historic norm, and most likely indicates a transition to like a more mature stage in our time, for better or for worse.
or
Whether that
does that,
means we're just not gonna.
or do you think
Go
it
ahead.
means that society itself is just not as interested in religion?
I don't know. That actually is a really fair point because, like 1830s, when religion was booming, when Joseph Smith happened, that was during this. I believe it was the second, not the first, but the second Great Awakening. You
Mhm.
know, well, you're right. When religiosity was booming,
Mhm.
and my understanding is that's actually starting once again, which is kind of cool.
Really?
I've just watched several interviews of several different YouTubers say that New Age atheism is dead and that Christian media online has like been exploding in interest for people. It's having quite the comeback.
That surprises me.
Um, yeah, likewise. So maybe you're right. Maybe it's just time, and in the next couple decades we'll see more growth again, and maybe not. I don't know. There's definitely a lot more stability that comes with maturity, but I do feel mixed on this. I don't necessarily feel like it's a good thing. I don't know. Full disclosure, hot take. It sometimes feels like Joseph and then Brigham died, and the prophets got boring. You know, it's like no more travel the plains and let's heal people left and right, and we can bring a person back from the dead every now and then. And it's definitely we've had plenty of really good conference talks talking about how the miracles haven't ceased, but it I mean, maybe it's just part of the zeitgeist of learning it as part of history, and we have established homes that we can live in, but I don't know. Do you guys ever feel like you're missing out on some past zeal, some past pioneer suffering that maybe led to such religious fervor and growth?
Kinda. I would definitely like say that they had it physically harder. I've also heard it said that our generations, like the past couple and the ones going forward, will have it way harder spiritually. So you'd think that it
Mhm.
would like still come, you know, still get some miracles here and there, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Fair point.
I think
Fair.
there would have been a lot of really powerful zeal. And I think the trials would have been so hard, like I would not ask for them and I wouldn't want to get to do them that they had to do. But I do think that it was clearer whether or not they were following the prophet. It was clearer whether someone was a faithful member, and that was probably kind of nice in some ways. Like, it was clear whether they were willing to leave their home and go to Zion or not. And it was clear, you know, to themselves, like, am I following the prophet or am I not? And those sacrifices were very visible. And that suffering was something that they could easily feel like, this is for God. This is what God asked me to do. Like, this is my sacrifice back to him, you know. I think that would have felt powerful. And it is like spiritually clearer, right? But it would have been physically really hard.
That is a super fascinating and cool point I have not thought of before, Brooklyn. If I am understanding right, you're saying that it was a time when your discipleship was very visible, like you, whereas nowadays, people might not always see you not drinking coffee every day, you know. But then if you accidentally cut off your neighbor on the highway and they see that it's you and they're like, oh my gosh, that person, yada, I don't know, you know. Whereas back in the day, if your neighbor's family was like all stricken with disease and everyone came and brought them food to live through the winter, it was like very evident that you had Christ-like love. Huh. Yeah, that's cool.
And I guess I think of it less in the terms of like, what does what I'm doing look like to other people, and more in the terms of like, how can what I see from other people help me, you know? Whereas it's like, now it's kind of hard to know as you look at other people sometimes, like, are they being a faithful member? What does a faithful member look like? What do the standards mean? What does following the prophet require? How much is enough? How much is too much? How much isn't enough? You know, like, what's good and what's bad. It's all a little bit intermeshed, and it's not easy to know outwardly, like looking at someone, whether they're an example that you want to follow or can look to.
Super true. Super cool. Thank you. Okay. And now, so I guess our previous slide was a little outdated. Now the church has gone from about 90% of members in the US to now only about 40%. So roughly 60% of members are international. Kind of cool. Have you guys ever heard of Mormoner?
No.
Yay, oh hey. I had never heard of Mormoner. I love Mormoner. They basically are a site that shares all the that gathers together all the cool evidence for whatever claim is a hot topic at the time. So first, more interesting, spicy. We got several more interesting demographic things. Now we're going to get a little more specific. Antidepressants in Utah. What are the stereotypes you guys, or things that you guys have heard about depression in Utah? What would you say?
I honestly don't have a stigma towards like specifically Utah. I know that like the more up and coming generations have been way more prescribed for antidepressants.
Fair. Okay. Well, let's just jump into it then. Basically, as you can see, they got 41 studies on the topic that they just organized for you, put a nice short paragraph, and you can go directly to the source. I stinking love Mormoner. I think it's a cool website. Long story short, antidepressants were actually used way more in Utah than most other states. It is now
Really?
on a down, way more, and it was something that people love to critique us about. It's now on a downward trend. However, when it comes to antidepressants and suicide, that's like much higher rates in Utah. Oh, hi, wee babe. It's fun of you for you to join the party.
Yes,
She's
Lynn.
been crying for almost 40 minutes.
Oh, not ready for bed, huh? As you can see on this little graph here, super fascinating, where the highest amounts of antidepressants or I guess I think this is specifically suicide is happening, is outside of higher concentrations of Latter-day Saint population. So interesting factoid there. Two other interesting facts is that basically studies show that there is not correlations at all with being a member and being more depressed. If anything, like pretty much all studies have shown is that the more religious you are, the happier you are in pretty much all cases. And kind of this answer that people think is happening instead is elevation and air pollution. There is some serious studies to show that the higher in elevation you are, the more depressed you get, like hardcore, and the more
What?
mental health is a problem.
So that
Yeah.
explains it. That's why I've got just
Same.
melancholy all the time.
All
I've
the
never heard
time,
that
Tanner.
before. Fascinating.
Yeah. I
When
did
you
not
think
hear it
about, like,
either, but
coastal towns, people love living by the beach, and the beach is like the stereotypical happy vibes. That's like the lowest elevation you can live is at the beach.
yeah.
Well, I think also just living by water. Let me see if there's a thing.
But yeah, I think living by water sure makes you happy. But just to brag on Mormoner a little bit more, like it's really cool how they like the studies they find, how they break it up. Like, how come there's high depression but also high happiness and life satisfaction? Or where's the coffee one I just saw? Oh yeah, is there any truth to the idea that because Latter-day Saints don't drink coffee, alcohol, or smoke, they simply replace these coping mechanisms with antidepressants? Like these are lots of really cool studies that they find. Answers to that, no. And then at the very bottom, they just summarize the facts. Utah does have a higher rate of antidepressants than average. However, it is decreasing, and you see the higher rates more where there's lower concentrations of Latter-day Saints. I guess there have been studies to show mixed results, but my understanding is that the studies that show happier is the ones that are much more credible. And hey, maybe not. Come at me, critics, and I'd love to go through studies with you, I guess. Let's see. Yeah, it ranks poorly in mental health, shows that we have high levels of happiness and life satisfaction, strong correlation between above sea level and depression and suicide rates. Isn't that so fascinating?
That is
Like,
so crazy. I never knew that.
On top of that, also is there's strong evidence, growing evidence between air pollution and depression in Utah as well. You got a study right there from the University of Utah.
That makes sense. It gets trapped for so long sometimes.
Yeah. So long story. So isn't that great? Isn't this such a cool website? Love Mormoner, y'all. Long story short, if you're feeling depressed in Utah, go live by the beach, just like Tanner's saying. Honestly, it'll probably fix all your problems. Yeah. So cool. Don't live in the mountains. Get away from them. That scripture was written incorrectly. Actually, JK, when it was saying go up to the mountains like the land of Jerusalem, I bet you. Okay, what's Jerusalem's elevation? Will you fact check me, Tanner? I bet you it's not nearly as high as Utah's.
Yeah, it's like pretty close to the ground. It
Really?
is 2,474. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, and
about
Utah's like 6,000 or
yeah, it's 3,800 feet above sea level, Jerusalem.
and Utah's like 6,000 or 7,000, right? So, moral of the story: live by the sea.
Actually, we're only like 700 feet above Jerusalem in terms of elevation.
In Utah?
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what I said. I just looked up the Provo elevation. It's 4,500. Jerusalem was 3,700.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you fact checked me. All right. I guess they were depressed in Jerusalem too.
Mhm.
No,
Everyone's depressed.
going back to this chart. If you see, that's one of the happier, less suicidal places is Provo. Pretty cool. A place where you'd think there'd be more. All the college kids everywhere that are all on their antidepressants, all depressed, all stressed. No, Provo is one of the better places out of the state. Very cool.
It's probably
That
because they're more
surprises me.
social though.
That is
That
true.
socializing like really helps.
I'm sure that does help, but college campuses are like places of depression and antidepressants, you know. And
That's fair.
but next topic. Sorry, I mean this is fun. I thought there's a lot to go through, but I also thought it'd be boring just going through a bunch of text. But if you guys are having fun, I'm having fun, and if we don't finish this podcast tonight, I'm totally down to do a part 2 next week.
Sweet.
So next, perfectionism. What's your guys' hot takes? I think that I totally mistitled this slide. That's funny. We're about to find out, but the stats that are about to appear might be about marriage instead of perfectionism. We'll see.
Well,
Let's see.
if it is about perfectionism, yep, there you go.
Oh yeah, it is. All right, look at that. Hoorah.
I think this stat says it perfectly. I think that Utah has a huge amount of people who are perfectionist. Way too many people are perfectionist. And I think that stems from a lot of things, but I don't know, our culture is pretty in there when it comes to that. Like especially the church, how we demand you do your best in every way that you can. And so then that translates to every other part of your life.
Very cool. All right. However, Tanner, there is a study done by the Family Foundations of Youth Development, is by BYU, which followed 2,000 youth, about half are Latter-day Saints, for 6 years. And what they found was basically a complete reversal of this common perception. Bum bum bum. Let me pull it up. I think it's interesting. Perfection. Oh, perfection.
Aslan sees herself in that picture and she's like, whoa.
Cute.
It's you.
Okay, I think this is a study. Here we go. Okay, this chart says it all, ladies and gentlemen. Super fascinating. Basically, moral of the story, you got the Latter-day Saints right here. So you basically got 3 groups. We got people who have low levels of struggling with perfectionism, and then mid levels of struggling with perfectionism, and then high. If you look in the high category, we are barely not the lowest. Barely not the lowest. If you look at the mid category, we are barely not the lowest in mid category. And if you look at the low, we are not the lowest, but we're like not the highest. Wait, I'm saying this wrong. We want to be higher here because we want low levels of perfectionism. Yeah, we are the highest. Look at that. Whew. That's close. We're the highest amount.
The highest one is a former member of the church.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Brooklyn. You see this, Tanner? People who report as former Latter-day Saints, they have the smallest group of people who struggle with perfectionism only a low amount. They have the largest group of people who struggle with perfectionism a medium amount. And they are the largest group of people who struggle with perfectionism the highest amount. Isn't that like what?
That is wild.
Yeah. So in their defense, I'm sure that they would like make the case that, yeah, basically the church doesn't work for these people. And so they leave the church because they just can't handle the perfectionism culture. Is something they could say, something that is fair. But I guess my thoughts when I see this is, like we said earlier, so much scholarship now shows that religion makes you happier. It does. And so this fits the narrative. This isn't like something, actually, what they say. I like the way they said it. Crunch the numbers following did not fit the study. Latter-day Saints had lower amounts. Although this research may surprise the social media world, the research community should be unsurprised, since decades of research have found that religion is related to better mental health, and Latter-day Saints are known for their strong religiosity. Case in point, I think that a lot of people who leave the church are people who are perfectionists, and that is, I'm sure that probably does happen, and that's got to be a struggle. And I'm sure maybe that's a lot of the reasons why they do leave is, I don't know, they hear the story of the bishop who did something imperfect, and that really irks them wrong. Or they learn about the church leader who did something imperfect, or they see a doctrinal change through the decades that irks them, you know?
Or maybe
And
they feel like they're not good enough for the church, that they can't be perfect for it.
totally, that they can't. And I think it shows how the church is built as a place for imperfect people. That's what it's meant for, and that's who can thrive here. And I definitely want to reach out and help people who struggle with perfectionism, right? Because it's definitely painful, difficult, and not a fun place to be in. And I mean, as you can see, they had everyone report to what level of perfectionism they struggle with. You know, they don't have a category for, oh, I don't struggle with perfectionism. Like, this is a very universal human, not universal, this is a very common human struggle, you know, very common human struggle. So I'm not trying to.
Everyone wants to be good
Little-
enough, you know? Everyone
It
wants
is
to be
really interesting
accepted and
to
loved.
see that, though. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't quite hear you. I didn't quite hear you, Brooklyn. It got a little cut out, but I just wanted to, before we jump over to that, I just wanted to say amen to that, Tanner. I love how you summarized that everyone just wants to be good. And what a beautiful way to look at it. That it's someone struggling to connect what they want to be with how they feel like they are. You know? What a beautiful and painful journey.
Everyone's got a little bit of imposter syndrome, I think.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Brooklyn. What did you say? It got a little cut with Tanner's audio.
I was just saying that I didn't realize that perfectionism was such a common struggle across the board for people. I think that's really interesting. Yeah. Especially because we think that, like, if people don't hold religious values, then they don't have to hold themselves to those values. So what values do they hold themselves to? What do they feel perfectionistic about? That would be really interesting to see, like, where do they go to find values if they aren't, if they're not anchored in a religion that gives them to them? How do they find values, and then how do they hold themselves to them? And like that's an interesting process.
Yeah, I think the school of philosophy is where a lot of people go, whether it's like stoicism or nihilism. Is that how, I don't know how to say that.
I think nihilism, but
just think annihilation and then take the N away.
Okay, yeah. I've noticed that a lot of people our age that are in university, they get a lot of validation from having good grades, from having 4.0s, and just like being perfect in what they do there. So I don't know. I don't know where people get their values, because I feel like we've grown up in a place where we've had our values handed to us. But yeah, that is a really good question on where do other people find their virtues. You should do a presentation on that sometime, Brooklyn.
That would be interesting. Well, and you brought up a point too that I wasn't really thinking about, because I'm thinking in terms of, like, people decide on, like, abstract values, that they're like, how much integrity do I have? How kind am I? Things like that. But people might not be thinking in those terms outside of religion. They might be thinking in terms of, like, how much do I get paid at my job, and how many people like me and how charismatic am I and
Status.
how nice is my house. Yeah, like what the standards that the world creates, like how, you know, when do I get my promotion and how do I gain more status in my job and whatever.
Funkiest husband.
Yeah, just all of those things.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. So far, I think this discussion has been pretty cool and pretty fun. I wanted to jump back just a little bit and do a little bit of red pilling. I forgot to mention in the overall general demographics that for like the first time in forever, there are more men in the church than females now. And nationwide, if I remember right, women are leaving religion quicker than men for like the first time in forevers. So two side interesting facts. I don't know. I think I wanted to bring that up because I definitely have felt like growing up in the church before, there was just culture comments of just men are better than women, and women are better than men in many regards, and I just passionately disagree and hate it, and for equality of genders, and think that I think that maybe a lot of the feelings that maybe sparked a lot of those claims is the fact that church became so womanized, I think, so feminized. And I don't know, maybe we need some more Indian leg wrestling, like back in Brother Joe Smith's day, to bring the men back. But kind of a tangent. Sorry, it's a bit of
interesting. I also
bit
wonder
of a topic change when we were going hard on perfectionism. But
No, you're
share your
good.
thought, Tanner, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I just wonder if the reason for that is because women today, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Brooklyn, they're wanting to be more empowered, right? And the church's stance hasn't really gone with the social, is it zeitgeist, how you'd say it, of the country or of Western civilization.
You saying women in the priesthood, Tanner, or what are you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like the church is more conservative. It stayed the same way as it generally has been since the 1830s, and that includes
Well, if it makes you
view on women.
If it makes you feel better, Tanner, women in the priesthood is probably one of the biggest things that I feel like I've struggled with before, where I'm like, hand it over. But that's a whole nother podcast for another time. But sorry, Brooklyn, you share your quick response, then we'll move on.
Asking Tanner, like, I was not quite sure how you were connecting the thought you just shared with like the idea that women are seen as like better than men in the church. How did those connect?
Oh, I think he was saying why women are leaving more than men right now.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I was focusing on.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I mean, maybe, I don't know. I haven't experienced a lot of like in my own wards and in Relief Society groups that I've been a part of, I haven't really seen much of that. But I know that like in my mom's ward in Philadelphia, they had a young women president who was like preaching that to the girls, like preaching that like women should have a priesthood and like all this like very feminist, very strong, intense stuff. And it was like really hard to like get her out of there. And there was a lot of girls who were really getting into that too. And so maybe it's more, I mean, it does seem to be more common among higher educated groups, and like, over on the East Coast, they care a lot about which university they go to, and like a lot of them get PhDs, and there's
a lot
like
of elitism
on education on that side of the country, at least up there. Yeah, so maybe that's connected.
Yeah, definitely could
cool.
be.
Thank you guys for being willing to go all over on these topics and thoughts with me tonight. I feel like I maybe should have let that one pass because I like felt the flow die when I was bringing it up, but thanks for saving it for me, giving interesting input. And our next topic is just kind of overall family stats from a pretty cool YouTube video. Did you know that people who are married are 500% more likely to report being happy? 500. Isn't that mind-boggling? Super anti-mainstream culture of love your single life, you know?
It says people who are in very happy marriages, not just married people.
Wow. Very happy.
So that's a
Ethan.
really important distinguishing factor there.
Hmm.
Very true. You want
So
to be
how
very
many
happy.
people are in
That's
very
just-
happy marriages, though?
It's a good question.
fair.
But it
Okay,
does
let's
show
see.
that like maybe those two things are correlated. You know, that
Yeah.
your relationship and marriage has a big effect on your happiness.
Hmm.
Yeah. I have a bunch of other stats in the notes here, but I think I only had room on this slide. I just put one stat about the importance of mothers and one stat about the importance of fathers. So yeah, here we go. Okay, mothers. Do you want to read this one, Brooklyn? And I'll have Hannah read the father's one.
Mothers experience a flood of oxytocin, bonding hormone, when an infant is born, essential to forming a bond. Through body-to-body and eye-to-eye interaction, mothers build the infant's right brain, the center of emotional well-being, and regulate their emotions in the first 18 months. This relationship lays the foundation for their sense of identity.
Fathers also experienced increased oxytocin when present with the mother and the baby. That's interesting. So not just the baby. Okay. Their bonding behaviors tend to be more stimulatory, like tickling and tossing. Fathers give children a view of the outside world and have a powerful impact on how children relate to it, helping them understand boundaries and appropriate behavior. Roughhousing teaches children how to regulate heightened emotions in a controlled way, linked to stronger peer capacities. Fathers promote independence. The presence and closeness of a father with his daughter can impact her reproductive trajectory and likelihood of engaging in risky sexual behaviors. I'm assuming that means mitigating that risk.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, either way, depending on whether it's a positive or negative relationship, probably.
Oh, yeah. It could go both ways, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, to finish out. Absence of a father is linked to higher incarceration rates for boys and increased depression for girls.
Mm.
I knew the one about the boys. I didn't know that about girls.
Yeah. In short, in summary, I got a meme that I just sent in the Discord. I'll share my screen again so y'all can see it. This just really summarizes. This just really summarizes kind of our life trajectory or predicament, our life situation. And as you can see in the graph, living alone is cool when you're in your 20s. Then it's really cool when you're in your 30s. You're making money, you can go travel. And pretty much every year after that, it's lame sauce and be married and have kids so you can be happy. Unless you can skateboard when you're 100, because then you're going to be really cool. I love this graph. I think it's so funny. Like,
I love the
being good at patty.
skateboarding one. It's so good.
Yeah, is that so awesome? Being good at patty cake. It's like so cool when you're 9, and then 12.
That's
Celebrating your birthday. Yay, it's awesome. And then 30, 40, 50. I'm actually surprised they put 70 that high, but 70, and then it's never cool again.
Mhm.
Oh, maybe 70's retirement. I get to see that. That's
What's
cool.
that one on the one that's going up at the end?
Oh no, that's the birthday one. The
Oh,
gray
there you
one.
go.
Yeah,
Oh,
exponentially goes up. Okay,
That's
fun.
sweet.
Okay, cool.
Did you
Oh.
see
I will say it's
dueling?
cool. You make
It's
it
never
dueling.
cool.
Did you see
That's
that?
right. That was pretty awesome too.
Did you see
Yeah,
that?
that was also
Not
pretty
cool
awesome.
that we have a birthday at age 60. That's so sad.
It is funny. Yeah, I wonder what's going on there. Interesting stuff. The being
That's
told
definitely a
you
big
look,
age transition from like middle age to old age.
yeah, like this is all just so funny, and I feel like so true too. Being told that you look older than you actually are. It's like, oh yeah, that's cool. I'd actually say that's cooler for longer, but then once you hit 30, nah, it's never cool.
Mhm.
It's so funny. Okay, that's enough of the humor there. Back to serious business. Learning why we're so cool. Hoorah! And I think we only got time for like one more topic, which is fine by me. It's fine by y'all. In total, yeah, we're gonna make it through about half of the topics.
Sweet. Part
Oh,
2.
yeah.
That's right, baby. Okay, let's see. I don't remember what's on this slide. Let's see here. Oh, so this is fascinating. Uh, Basically, education in the church. People will like critique us by saying like we're just crazies. I mean, the Protestant and evangelical movements don't like us, and we've never really liked them. And we're slowly starting to have more interfaith dialogues. You can see that with the channel called like Hello Saints and that kind of stuff going on. But for the most part, we've never been huge fans, and so there's just lots of negative stereotypes about us. And one is that we're just a bunch of uneducated people who are duped. But super fascinating facts about the education of members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Um, Data indicates that the LDS emphasis on education has resulted in higher education compared to the general U.S. population, like among church members. Sorry, a significantly greater percentage of both males and females have completed post-secondary education than the general population. Very cool. Contrary to critics' expectations, higher education leads to that higher education would lead to less religious observance. The opposite occurs for Latter-day Saints. We're like basically the only ones that this happens with too. Um, let me okay. Let me pull up the next slide. Will y'all read it, discuss while I try to find a fact to share that is cool.
So, scientists in Utah. Research indicates that Utah is the top state for per capita scientist production, and the Mormon population within Utah produces more scientists relative to their numbers.
Really?
Significantly, sorry?
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you're
Just
good.
like, whoa.
Significantly, a high percentage of these Mormon scientists are strong believers in key LDS doctrines, including Joseph Smith being a prophet. Most of them report being active in the church.
Yeah, so basically that's making the claim that basically we're super well educated. We're not well educated in just like, I don't know, church apologetics and dance, but we are like hard science, rational folk who kick people's butts when it comes to our grades. uh, and I found the stat that I was looking for. Thank you for stalling for me. This is a study by the Pew Research Center. I think it's a little old study. Let me zoom back out and see. I think it's a little dated, so I'm not totally sure. 2017. That's not
That's not too
terrible,
bad.
I think.
Yeah.
Super, super. Wait, nope, not this one. Where'd my graph go? Right here. Super, super cool. You look at here is the group. So you got evangelical Protestants, mainline Protestants, historically Black Protestants, Catholics, and Mormons. And then you got the rate at which they attend weekly services, the rate at which they pray daily, the rate. Oh, wait, this is not the graph I was looking for. This is still actually a cool graph. Overall religious commitment, because if you look at this, we got some of the highest numbers here. Oh, wait, no, this is the graph, because here we go. You see this breakdown. You got college graduate, some college, high school or less. What you see is in most groups, within most groups, when you have higher education, you're either going down in your religious observance or staying the same. But when you come down and you look at the Mormons, you see that the more education we get, the more we attend church, the more we pray, the more that we say religion is very important, the more that we believe in God with absolute certainty, and the more that we are religiously committed. Isn't that so cool?
Mhm. I like that the historically black Protestants are the only ones that are close to us. I think that's awesome.
That's kind of interesting how they break that down, huh? Yeah. So I think that's a really cool fact. As we wrap up, just a few disclosures. Again, this was very fun to share, and there's lots and lots of different sources that I was like reviewing and pulling from for this, and super invite whoever's watching to validate me, because I mean new studies come out every year, right? Go look at Mormoner, I guess, and just read all their stuff, because it's not going to be biased at all. Wink. But I am a believer in Christ's promise that we can know whether or not teachings are good based on their fruits, based on how we feel the difference in our lives. I feel a difference when I live the teachings of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I feel happier. I feel more confident in my day-to-day life. And I feel a joy to be alive. And I want to share that with my future kids. Hope they know that we aren't just crazy, that there's reason why we are able to enjoy these good fruits. So that's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. It's a party. I look forward to
Amen.
part 2, where we
Hit that
can go
like
through
and
the rest of these
subscribe button.
facts.
Give us 5 stars on Spotify.
Hit that reminder bell.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, hasta luego. Bye, y'all.
Thank you. Thank you.